All right, let's move on to the third emailed in topic today. And the third emailed in topic today comes to us from Vargas Miller, who writes, "Hi, John. Big fan of the show. Thank you so much, Vargas. The tracking numbers just came out for The Predator opening in September, and right now they're predicting it's going to come in at around $30 million for its opening weekend. It's a number that I'm not sure if it's good or bad. How do you see a $30 million opening weekend for The Predator?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yes, so this new Predator movie's coming out. I'm got a kick. I'll be honest with you. I'm getting a kick out of the trailers. I am. I thought they've been fun. I thought they're going back for that 90s style kind of feel to them. I like what I've seen so far. I really have. Now, the first tracking numbers have come out, as Vargas just pointed out, and they're saying right now it's looking like it's going to come in around $30 million. Okay, it's going to come in around $30 million. Is that good or bad? Well, it really all depends on how you decide to look at it. On the one hand, if you go, well, Avengers just opened at $250 million or whatever the number was. Well, then yes, if you're going to compare it to Avengers or if you're going to compare it to Black Panther, sure. If you compare it to other films, it's perfectly fine. It also kind of depends a little bit on the budget, and I'm not really, from what I understand, they really kept a tight rein on the budget for this film, so I don't think it's an astronomical budget. So at $30 million, would that be a disappointment? Well, let's put it in context a little bit. How have Predator films been performing? What kind of expectations do we think the producers had? And I gotta think, there's no way the producers thought this movie would make much more than $30 million on opening weekend to start with. Okay, let's look at a history of the Predator films, okay? Once again, we're over here on the good website, Box Office Mojo, right? Now, the last Predator movie to hit theaters was Predators in 2010. Now, that movie had Adrian Brody in it. I actually didn't mind that movie. But the reality is, look at this opening weekend number. That movie made $24.7 million on its opening weekend, went on to make $127 million, which on a $40 million budget is still actually kind of profitable. And that movie opened with $24 million. That was just in 2010. Okay, let's go back to the film that happened before that. We had Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. How did that film do? Well, when we look at it, we see that it had an opening weekend of just $10 million. That movie went on to make $87 million worldwide, so that thing just opened at $10 million. Look, already we're in a place where we've got to say that if the new Predator movie opens to $30 million, it's going to be the biggest opening in franchise history except for one film. Now, the one film that did better opening weekend was Alien vs. Predator in 2004. That was the first one. That one opened to $38 million. That is the biggest opening weekend, I believe at any rate. That is the biggest opening weekend of any Predator movie. I believe Predators 2 didn't do better than that. No, it only made $8 million or whatever. So the best opening weekend ever for any Predator film was $38 million. $38 million, right? So that's the best they've ever done. Okay, right now, the early tracking is putting this Predators movie, when the last one only opened to 24, and the one before that only opened to 10, and the one before that only opened to 8, I think, but whatever. But in the last number of years, that's the best they've done. Understanding that, the producers of this film had to know they couldn't come out with a Predator movie now and expect it to make $110 million opening weekend. So if it opens at 30, it'll be the second best opening in its history, but we're still a ways away from this. We're still a number of weeks away from Predator opening. It is possible, since they're kind of forecasting 30 right now, this thing could open at 40. If it does open at 40, that means that this Predator movie will be the highest opening weekend of any Predator film in history. And if they really did keep this budget under wraps, and they kept it tight, and they didn't go over budget, and they didn't pull a Robert Rodriguez and go way over budget or anything like that. If they did that, and this movie can come in making $150 to $200 million worldwide, now you're talking about a film that's profitable and making the money. So at this point, once you put it into context, I'm going to say a $30 million, if it's $30 million, it could be higher, could be a little bit lower, but it could go higher than that. That a $30 million or higher opening weekend for this Predator movie, I think is perfectly good. especially when you put it in context and the history of this franchise. A $30 million opening weekend is perfectly good. So I would be happy with it if I were them, but whether they'll be happy with it or not, we're going to have to wait and find out. All right, let's move on to the next email.